It only interacts with the subcellular androgen receptor. It's the only one beside danazol that does so.
Yeah.
It is also a pure class 2 drug, so it will magnify the effect of class 1 drugs like a trembolone or any of those drugs as well.
Now, we already discussed Winstrol as an injectable, but I want to go over it again as an oral because there is a bit of a difference. Between bioavailability between oral Winstrol and injectable Winstrol. I really love injectable Winstrol, like we highlighted. That's basically A tier or S tier. If you can get away with the post-injection pain and if you can mitigate the potential for infection, right? So oral Winstrol seems to be a little bit safer in that sense.
For men, not for women. Because the
clarify.
sex hormone binding globulin reduction that occurs when you take it orally will cause their natural androgen level to go up as well. You want to virilize a woman, give her oral Winstrol. They should use injectable if they can use and I'm not advising women use Winstrol, but they should probably use injectable because you'll miss that. That's the biggest difference is just how it's metabolized.
And that's one of the reasons why oral steroids crush SAPG so much more than injectables because they go through the liver twice. Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay. So all the women watching, all the 5 women of my audience are going to be on that injectable Winstrol train. Make sure you dilute it from 50 milligrams to 25 milligrams for 1 milliliter.
Although, honestly, a lot of the underground labs are not brewing it at 50. It says 50 on the bottle. It's probably 25.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold very well. Not that it holds at you right. You got to shake it anyway, but a lot of times it literally doesn't fit. So it might be worth testing.
Maybe that's why the Winstrol I was using was so smooth because it went through an insulin syringe.
You can like grind it like a microfine powder.
Yeah,
a lot of labs do that now, so it's not so like the Zambon stuff that was like crystals.
Yeah,
right. You use like an 18 gauge needle to get that stuff in.
That's what I used the first time. It worked like a charm, though.
It works. It just hurts.
Oh, it hurt terribly. Yeah. So oral Winstrol. I mean, it has its place during contest prep. I like it, but not as much as injectable Winstrol. But I do understand why people would want to run it. I just feel that the dose needs to be twice as high as injectable Winstrol. So with injectable Winstrol, I mean, at 50 milligrams per day, that's kind of like the upper ceiling. Whereas with oral Winstrol, you might ramp that up to 150.
I've gone as high as 2. I'll have some guys pre-contest run 2, but that's for a very short period of time, like peak week.
Yeah, so that's like the last 7 days, last 10 days leading into a show?
That's 7 the most. I usually ramp at 50, 100, 150, 200 like that.
Right.
And at the very end, and then pull it out.
And that's allegedly how somebody that we know very close to us and dearly won his pro card?
Yep.
Yeah, so it does work.
It works.
Cosmetic.
No, it is. And that's something I got from a guy who was Mr. Olympia a long time ago. That's what a lot of the guys did in the 2000s.
Yeah. Dean, what do you think about oral Winstrol?
Yeah, I really like it. When it came to even my like prep, I chose it over Anavar. So, from it, like Kurt said, any guys I've coached in the past to the stage, I'll have done that sort of ramp protocol in the last 7 to 10 days. 100 milligrams is not uncommon, for sub 100 kilo bodybuilder for the last 7 days. And it is, anyone who tries this, and again, we're not advising, but you will literally get drier and drier, from 4 days out. You will wake up each day, your look improves all the way to show. And also, if you're trying to make a weight class, it just really starts to shift things in favor in terms of like pulling out that last bit of fluid that's in the sub-Q space.
True. So we're talking about short duration leading into the contest, not long duration to the point you risk injury.
Yeah. I'd be probably the same as where we done with my injectable at least A.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. But only for a short period of time. Yeah.
I mean, even when you look at how you set up these orals for a show, really from like, if you're to be really, risk averse and you didn't really care, maybe 8 weeks out in, do you really need to run it from 8 weeks out? No, probably not.
Definitely not.
4 weeks out, yeah, maybe there might be merit there where you really want to start gauging someone's look from 4 weeks out. But, most people will see that benefit from, the final 2 weeks to 4 weeks out where you start introducing it for that benefit look.
Yeah, I feel that with Winstrol, whether it's injectable or oral, that the maximum cosmetic changes are already there at 10 days, maybe 14 days.
Yeah.
So why run it any longer? Maybe 14 days into your carb load. And if you're doing like a 4-day carb load with a 1-day cleanup and a 1-day fat load, then 2.5 weeks before the show, that's the maximum I would add it in. I added in 50 milligrams Winstrol sub-Q for 6 weeks because I wanted to see if it could help with the angioedema caused by the growth hormone, which it didn't. So that question is already answered. I still got edema, even though I did get significantly drier. And then, of course, everything gets super tight. And then by the time I was in America, I would try to reach for steak, and then my whole forearm would cramp up because I took the growth hormone out, and then the Winstrol really starts working. So I'm like, and then you can reach for it. So I would never do long-term Winstrol again. But yeah, it was a fun experiment to give that a try. Again, try it on yourself before you recommend it to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. The other thing with Winstrol, I guess we're going to probably compete a head-to-head against Anavar as well. In terms of the table.
We'll save that for last. Yeah, we'll save that for last.
I just don't see some of from a non-genomic perspective, like with Kurt and the classification. You don't see the CNS response from Winstrol from a calcium signaling perspective. So it's not something that you add in, all of a sudden you regain strength. So from a stack design or whatever, it's not something you're going to add in, all of a sudden you're going to retain strength heading into a show. It tends to be more so from the SHBG reduction and that other interaction perspective that the cosmetics change. It's not something that is going to save you strength-wise heading into a show.
Maybe that's for the best, because again, if you get really strong on Winstrol with the compromised tendons and the drying out effect, you're just getting injured. Which on the other hand, like I think everybody owes themselves like 6 weeks on oral Winstrol just to train with a little bit less bouncy reps. So they need to learn how to focus on their reps with time under tension, slow positives, slow negatives, a little bit in the stretch position. Because I think on Winstrol, you get so compromised, it's the only way to really learn it. Because if you don't train like that, you tear yourself apart. Whereas if you really learn how to go through the motion slowly and controlledly, Winstrol is probably the best handicap you can give yourself. And I think everybody needs to experience that at one point or another just to improve their training technique. Because it's you go to that by default. Because you can't train in the other way, otherwise you just get injured. So that's what I would recommend for the guys that are still on the fence on how to train. Just go on Winstrol for a couple of weeks, and then you know how to train, and then hold that thought for when you're on Anadrol and the Anabol and whatever, when you can do like bouncy reps like Ronnie Coleman, which nowadays it's probably best not to do that. So that would be my recommendation. I agree. Put it in A tier, just like injectable Winstrol. It has a couple caveats, but there's nothing else for cosmetic changes the last couple of weeks leading into a photo shoot. Because it does put the veins on your abs and your forehead and everywhere else, and your ankles specifically. So from Winstrol, let's go over to Turinabol, the only steroid designed for athletes, heavily abused.
I didn't get to rate Winstrol.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to give it an A as well.
Okay.
And I was going to say, and the only other point I think is like Dean said, it doesn't interact with, it only interacts with the subcellular angiotensin receptor. It's the only one beside danazol that does so. Like we talked about in the last. So it is also a pure class 2 drug, so it will magnify the effect of class 1 drugs like a trenbolone or any of those drugs as well. It can be used with nandrolone really well because it'll lower the progesterone at the liver. I definitely give it at least an A. I think for used correctly, not just like used all the time, but I think it definitely has. It is one of the few 4 or 5 steroids that's actually unique, that does something totally different than other drugs.
Yeah, I mean the effects that it has in your skin, just regarding the angioedema. I mean it's night and day. Yeah, it's night and day. It literally turns you from I'm not sure if I'm ready to within 4 days you're like fuck, I'm ready. Yep. And then all you need to do is deplete and load up, and then you look really crazy. Yep. But yeah, besides that contest prep, and maybe learning how to train a little bit more efficiently, I don't see another application. But when it does what it's supposed to do, it's really
just good at it. And the strength that they used to leverage it in sprinters and things like that, because the strength gains that you get are not nervous system. It's actually through the same mechanism that'll hurt you. It's as the tendons get stiffer, you can produce more force, except then the tendon tears.
No, that's what
right,
we saw
as
in
we
the
see.
Olympics, right?
And
Ben Johnson tore his hamstring, and many runners tore their hamstrings on Winstrol.
And it's not going to cause any amount of real weight gain, right? No one's really, even though it's probably got the highest level of dissociation between androgenic and anabolic, right? Tendencies of any drug that I'm aware of, right? 320 versus what's the androgenic rating, like a 20 or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Whether that's not necessarily accurate, but it doesn't cause any weight gain. So for an athlete doesn't need to be under the spotlight for looking large, that was, I think, another reason why they used it, because it's not adding weight.
I always felt that it shifted like the subcutaneous water retention to intramuscular. It's a bit of an oversimplification to mention that, right? To mention it like that. But I always felt that you didn't really lose any water or weight on Winstrol, but it would just shift it to a more favorably cosmetic look, especially when you're flat, because some of the flatness goes away as well on Winstrol. Now,
possible.
How many guys do run test and Winstrol only? Right?
Not a lot.
No, mostly it's test, train, Maestro and Primo and Winstrol, and then maybe Supertrol halotestin. So that complicates the matter. But I always felt that you get some sort of positive water retention shifting from subcutaneous space to intramuscular. That's how I always looked at it. So A tier we can agree on.
Yep.
Cool.